It can do anything that you can do in the Parakeet UI, you can do through Rosella. So you can ask it to, maybe create one of those documents like the ISO 50001 document, or you can ask it to create a new control for you. So if you have a policy or a risk and you want to create a control for it, you could ask Rosella and it will utilize all of the training and all of the special data that we have, to create that. Also, Rosella does agentic workflows, which means that it can complete different tasks with those tools I was talking about earlier. Yeah. For example, if you want to send every supplier in your supplier network a survey to maybe ask them a question about their availability on a certain product, or maybe to check on a compliance thing, you could ask Rosella to do that. It will draft that survey. It will make sure it has contact information for all of those different suppliers. It will send it. It will send the follow-ups. And so it's really meant to be an assistant to you as far as risk and compliance tasks that a Parakeet can handle. And the goal long-term is that it'll be the primary interface for Parakeet.
The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you're ambitious, but are manual tasks like admin, lead generation, nurturing, and onboarding holding you back from truly scaling your business? Imagine saving dozens of hours every week, freeing you to deepen client relationships and execute high-impact strategy. Our clients aren't just imagining it. They're saving countless hours per week and doubling their revenue within months. We custom-build AI automation systems that eliminate the grind. From effortless lead generation and nurturing to seamless onboarding, we give you back the most valuable resource, your time, so you can focus on building those vital human connections and driving strategic growth. Stop letting repetitive tasks limit your potential. It's time to build a business that works for you, not the other way around. Ready to unlock your true scaling power? Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free AI audit call today to discover how you can save time and double your revenue. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Intelligence Forge YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode.
All right. Thanks for joining us once again. We have a special guest today, and he will be introducing himself, and we take it up from there. So over to you, Jowanza. Can you just tell us briefly your journey within this industry, the IT industry, what actually led you, to where you are today? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. I am happy to share a little bit about my journey. So I've been in software and IT, for about 15 years. I started as a graduate out of my undergraduate school, which was Brigham Young University, graduated from there, and then spent the rest of my career working in IT and tech. So I started out as a data analyst, and then I moved over to being a software engineer. I did a lot of data engineering throughout the kind of 2010s, and then moved over to Mastercard. I was a VP of software engineering there, and right before deciding to found the company I work at now, which is called Parakeet. And Parakeet is a risk and compliance platform for goods producing companies. So that includes manufacturers, oil and gas companies, and others. So it's been a great journey, and I've been happy to work in this industry and see the kind of ebbs and flows that have happened over the last 15 years.
Wow, what a journey. All right. Okay, tell us about Parakeet. What inspired you to create risk and compliance platform? I mean, that's a very, very unique niche, if I have to put it that way, especially specializing in goods producing company. What gap are you actually filling up in the market?
Yeah, for sure. So if you look at the industries that are the heaviest regulated, the financial sector would be kind of the most regulated. They have a very intricate and intertwined relationship with their regulators. Probably a close second would be healthcare, and then a third will actually be manufacturing. So manufacturing is a very highly regulated industry. There's over 400,000 regulations that are applicable to manufacturers in the US. And most of the technology that helps companies deal with risk and compliance management focuses on the top layer. So it focuses on banks, financial institutions, healthcare, and the industry of manufacturing is really underserved. So that's why we chose to go after this industry. It's very important. All of the goods that we use, the things that we eat, the homes that we live in are all built by goods producing companies, and they deserve to have software that helps them to mitigate some of the risks that their businesses are involved in, and then also to help them comply with the many regulations that they have.
Interesting. I like that. So you've been in this space for a while now. Okay, how have you seen the industry risk and compliance landscape evolve, particularly around automation and technology adoption?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. So I think if you break it down over the last 20 years, the things that have changed are many. So I think first where we started is just in digitization. So going from what you imagine at a factory or a shop floor, your clipboard, your checklist on those clipboards, and then using that as part of your system of record for compliance. So we moved from that to something digitized. So there's lots of software that helps you digitize your quality management systems, your occupational health and safety systems, and other systems that would have to do with compliance. Nowadays, we're at a new age where we're trying to move it in two directions. So one is called like real-time compliance, and it's really where Parakeet is focused, where we can take data that's coming off of machines or coming off of trucks and tell you if you're in compliance or out of compliance in real time. And why this matters is because of the cost and the burden that it takes to like be in compliance and to show that you're always in compliance. And by having these real-time systems track it, it makes the operational overhead of complying lower. The second place is in agentic AI. So we can use agentic AI to actually complete many of the tasks that traditionally a sourcing analyst or a risk analyst or compliance analyst would do. So this is tasks like sending surveys to your suppliers or sending surveys to your contractors, or also even getting information from a supplier or contractor. LLMs are really good at collecting this data and synthesizing it, and we are seeing a wave of IT and kind of adoption of these types of technologies across this kind of compliance and risk management space. And so we're keen on being at the forefront of it, and we're continuing to bring those innovations, but many other great companies in our space are doing the same thing as well.
Wow, I like that. But the follow-up question that I will ask you is, how are the companies accepting and adopting this change? I guess there will be some pushback anyway.
Yeah, you're correct. I think there's definitely a maturity life cycle. So some companies have maybe more risk or more costs associated with risk, and they may be in a position where they're able to take a flyer on new software, a new software approach that uses automation. Other companies are not, like maybe they don't have the burden of risk or the burden of compliance that would really justify the cost of adopting software that automates these tasks. And then there are other companies who don't believe that compliance and risk should be managed by software, right? That it's very much a human task and a task that requires expertise. And they're correct. So I think that the best systems are ones that work with humans in the loop, that they don't try to completely automate and take out the experts in the compliance space and the risk management space, but they try to work with them. They take the things off of their plate that would be onerous, and then they bring things and bring value in a way that is repeatable and that has kind of long-term benefit to the firm.
Yeah, I think my 1 cent to that, you're right, is to say when you automate anything, ensure that the human element still remains, no matter how. Even if it is 5%, human element is very important. I think that's just my own take in that. But some people may disagree, but I think that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could think about this, from like a food perspective. So I don't know what your favorite foods are, but most of the food producers in the United States are regulated by several entities, but one of them is the Food and Drug Administration, and they ensure that we have a safe food system. And so if you think about a robot or LLM, trying to automate some tasks around food safety, you would hope that maybe there was a backstop on that, because if they made a mistake and then maybe too much of an ingredient ended up in a pill or a food and it made us sick and needed to be recalled, that would be a very bad outcome. But if it took away the very onerous and burdensome process of filling out some paperwork or of doing some upfront research, then that's a good outcome, because it gives the people who are doing the inspections and the quality assurance more time to do that kind of work and less time to spend on all the paperwork and other tasks that they may have to do in their jobs.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, I guess I was speaking with somebody 2 weeks ago, and then he replied back to me, said, I cannot hold AI responsible for any bad decision made. So, I mean, he's right somehow, but I told him, I said, it's only if you outsource or you give all your decision making to AI. Again, that's why that 5% for me lies. Tell AI to do for you, make sure you check it, make sure you review it before you send it out there. Because, of course, you're not going to hold AI responsible. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Say, oh, it's AI that did it for me, so I didn't know, and I'm not going to take responsibility. Well,
yeah.
Anyway, I know you've talked about compliance now, and I think what this tells me is that if any manufacturing company does not have compliance requirement, they may not really bother about some of these things that you guys do. So it means that is one of the driving force now. What other two biggest trends have you seen within the industry that can also drive automation in what you do?
Yeah, so the regulatory landscape or the legal landscape is a big factor in adopting any kind of the tools that we make or some of our competitors make. But there are other factors as well. So the insurance or insurable risk world is another big one. So every manufacturer needs to have insurance, and then also in many cases needs to have bonding. And so these protect and transfer risk from the manufacturer to an insurance company. And when being insured, those insurance companies have requirements of their customers because they are underwriting the risk of their operations. And so for many of those companies that we serve, they need to validate the insurance of their contractors or their suppliers. And our customers also have their own insurance policies. And this whole world of having insurance, having the ability to transfer risk is quite litigious, and then it's also quite strenuous as far as the requirements go. So this is one area where our customers are trying to lower their exposure and lower their burden, especially for things like workers' compensation insurance. So tools that help them show that they're doing good processes in their warehouses, in their factories, that their employees do what's called lock-in and tag-out. So they have procedures to make sure that they use machines and lift things, drive vehicles carefully. And if they follow those processes, it's supposed to reduce incidents. And so the fact that our software can help illustrate to their insurers that they are complying with these laws and their own policies, then it helps them lower the burden of that insurance cost. The second thing I would say too, that's like a non-regulatory reason why people are adopting these types of technologies, is because of it's kind of the right thing to do in terms of the things that they care about as an organization. So one of them is just keeping their employees safe, right? That's kind of the bar none the most important thing. I don't know if you've seen the show Dangerous Jobs, but there's many jobs out there who, whether you're deep sea fishing or logging or mining, where there's very dangerous jobs with a high incidence of loss and a high incidence of death and dismemberment. And so employers don't want their employees dismembered or dead. And so instituting a lot of these policies, creating an environment where it's safe is important to them so that they don't hurt their employees and that every employee goes home every day safe. The second thing when you think about this also is that there is a element of what we call like corporate social responsibility, where as a corporation and as an employer of people, you have a responsibility to create an environment that is not only providing them a job and an income, but also providing them a safe space to grow and to maybe get a promotion. And so a lot of these compliance frameworks and policies and procedures are aimed toward creating a safer and a more and a workplace that could foster more growth. And so we see that as well. So I think ultimately, though, the laws and legal precedents is kind of the origins of why the software exists and why people try to look for automation in this area. But also, if you think about the overall risk that these companies carry in working with many partners and distributing their products across the world, in trying to gather minerals and other raw materials from various partners in various places, it's quite risky, right? They can be involved in things that they don't necessarily want to, and so their process and due diligence is paramount to really being able to reduce the risk that they are exposed to from a liability perspective, being sued by customers or downstream supply chain partners, but then also just being a good corporate citizen. So there's lots of good reasons to be compliant outside of the law, and many of them can help protect you. And I think the final thing I'll say on this is compliance can really be a revenue center for people and companies because it can provide a way that you operate that reduces the overall burden on all of your partners. So, I think one of the things that one of my friends have told me is that, whatever business you're in, as long as you're making everyone money, it's good. And so being a good supply chain partner and being compliant can help you achieve that. And that may result in kind of a domino effect of everyone being better off and everyone being more profitable. And so there's lots of good reasons to adopt this. And, I definitely shared a couple there.
I love that. And talking about dangerous job, I think one that I witnessed myself was people going in the deep sea, under the ship to go service something. I see that as, well, I believe now maybe a robot will be doing that for us.
Yeah, that would be ideal. And I think there is a future where robots can do a lot more. But for now, the safety and kind of doing these procedures in a way that is focused on bringing those people home, making sure that they can get back to their families is important. And I think as a society, we value human life and we value safety. So that's more than the regulations. Like we should think about how we can do things safely.
Yeah, you're right. Very right. All right. So within the adoption area, what is the biggest hurdle that people face or company face, or like people like you face when you try to implement automation system within an organization? So is it technical? Is it cultural? Is it budget? What are some of those things you've experienced?
Yeah, all of the above, really. I think let's start with the last one. So budget is a big one. Many systems, especially in an industrial context that bring automation, come with a hefty price tag. And so you have to think about that investment and how you're going to recoup that investment. And I think in many cases, companies, startups don't do a good job of explaining not only the ROI, but the calendar or the schedule when you will get to that ROI and when that payback will kind of hit your organization. Secondly, it is a technological feasibility. In many cases, in order to automate, you need to connect to existing systems. And some of these systems are antiquated. They're from the 80s or earlier, and there's not clean interfaces to connect to them. And there's lots of workarounds required to really utilize them and work with them. So that's a unambiguous negative, and that will contribute to the slowdown of adoption. There's also status quo bias, I think, is the most common. So this is where if you've been working with a tool for a decade or 2 decades, what's your real impetus to change, right? Even if it's not the perfect tool, even if there's things that annoy you about it, it's a familiar interface. Do you use Gmail for your email?
No. Well, yeah,
No?
I do, but I prefer Outlook.
Okay. Well, so say one day, Outlook disappeared, right? And you had to use a new interface that looked nothing like Outlook. It's quite disorienting and it's quite difficult to really to get used to that. And I think that's what we present. Like we're bringing new interfaces, new ways of doing things, and maybe not a very clear value proposition to these customers. And so they have to weigh that, or they have to think about how are we going to get value and have to learn something new. So I think those are the 3 biggest reasons. And I think in that last one, the status quo, organizational inertia is a real thing, right? When you work at a company of any size, even one as small as ours, or even one as big as some of the biggest companies out there like Coca-Cola or General Motors, there's just an organizational push that it takes to adopt new tools and adopt new automations that are uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to introduce them. It's uncomfortable to roll them out. It's uncomfortable to be responsible for them. And it's a big change that requires stakeholder buy-in, and it also requires the vendors and the people who are involved in rolling out that change to be empathetic and to work with those organizations to make sure those get rolled out successfully.
Yeah, I mean, change is one thing as human that we have to deal with, either we like it or not. I think some few years back, we were implementing some software in Saudi Arabia for a car manufacturing company. And it got to a stage that some of those engineers that had been there for like 35, 40 years, 3 of them actually quit because they couldn't handle the new software we were implementing for them. They just say, well, we've been doing this thing all our life. Now you want to change what we're using now. And they said, no, this is not for them. Well, I think it's just part of what we see. But change is something that as a human, we just have to live with. All right. Moving forward. Oh, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not too surprised by that. As a career software engineer, we're pretty attached to our tools. And so even for hardware engineers, I can imagine the same thing where, if your favorite tool that you've been using and you're mastered your whole life gets ripped out of your hands, that may make you feel a certain way. So that totally resonated with their feelings.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes sense.
All right. You spoke about ROI. I just want to ask you now, how does your system actually measure this ROI? For people to actually see that, well, what we are about to embark on, we actually pay off at a long run, probably few years down the line, few months down the line.
Yeah, so that's one of the critical things that we built into the product when we started is it's called ROI. It's actually a feature in our app where we track all of the different actions that are happening inside of Parakeet, and then we display the kind of payback that the customer is experiencing in real time. So let me give you an example because it'll kind of help crystallize it. In our software, we have several agentic workflows. So these are things where you can say, hey, Parakeet, help me make a new ISO 50001 manual, right? So the manual is required. You need to make kind of a booklet that explains how you will implement that ISO standard. This would be ISO 50001 is called energy. So this is how your company will manage your energy, track their energy, and kind of operate toward a energy surplus kind of mentality. And so our software, you could ask it, and then it will create a very high fidelity document that will be compliant with the ISO 50001 standard. And so doing that task would take humans many weeks to come up with. And so what we do is we agree with our customers that, hey, this is the kind of value that this kind of task brings. And then as they use the software, we track that, right? And so we can know, okay, this ISO 50001 document would be worth $100,000. Let's say I'm throwing out a really high number, it's higher than it would be. And then we would track that. Okay, so we did that. You didn't need to do that. And so, that's $100,000 of value. And so we can say, here is the contract value. And then here's all the value you've got incrementally from the software. And then that gives them a clean and clear picture of what kind of ROI that they're getting. And we track that daily and then also on a quarterly basis in our quarterly business reviews, because for us, we want to demonstrate clear value. And if we can't do that, then they shouldn't be a customer of ours, right? They're not getting value in surplus of what they paid, then we failed them. And so it's really our North Star. It's how I consider everything and how our product team looks at it is like, how can we keep delivering so that this ROI metric can keep going up?
Out of curiosity, how does that different from normal machine learning language tools out there, like your OpenAI and others?
Yeah, so OpenAI, Claude, Anthropic, these are all tools that we use in our software. So we're built on top of them. And so they provide kind of the base large language model capabilities and base capabilities to do agentic workflows. But then we've built several of our own in-house workflows. And then we've also done what's called fine tuning, where we have our own proprietary data that we will create a variant of their model with our proprietary data. So that's very good at handling very specific problems that we have as a company. So that's so to answer your question, it's not different in terms of like we are using those models under the hood, but we've added a bunch of our own proprietary kind of magic on top of it. And especially on the tool side. So what a tool looks like is when you ask like ChatGPT, what's the weather in San Francisco, the base model doesn't have any concept of what the weather in San Francisco is, but what it has is effectively a program that ChatGPT as a company given it to say, hey, when someone asks you about the weather, then go to the weather app, look up the weather, and answer that question. And so we've built tools like that. So, for example, the ISO 50001 documentation, it's like a tool. So we could say, hey, if someone asks you about this, then here's all this custom data that we've used to build ISO 50001 stat. And then maybe some other tools are data analysis. So we have a tool where, hey, you could say, hey, I want to understand my energy usage over time, and here's my database. And we can go in there, look up the right columns that will tell us the right answer, and then provide you visualizations and analytics based on that. So that's kind of the value added is like, ChatGPT can't make every single possible tool out there, but when you really kind of narrow down on your domain, you can make specific tools that would be value added to your customers.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. So I will see you as an automation guy. No doubt about that. However, maybe specifically, what are some of the tools that you're using to run your company on a day-to-day basis? And what are those things? So let's say some of the things you already automate, some of the things you've not automated. You want to share that with us?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the things that are automated well, and I could describe how, are really our note-taking system. So we use Notion and Notion AI to record notes. So if we're ever in a meeting, Notion AI is in the background recording those meetings, taking notes, tagging people who have different assignments from that meeting. And that's a very effective system because we know as long as Notion was there, that anything that happened in that meeting is recorded. We can search it. We can know what the takeaways are from it. And so that's a very nice system that we have configured, and we don't have to do much, right? It just kind of works, and that's nice. I would say also on our software development side, so we use Linear, and Linear is integrated with a bunch of different LLM tools that we use, including Cursor, which is the integrated development environment that we use, and then also Devin, which is a kind of an AI coding agent. So you can assign Devin tasks and then Devin will do them. So that's integrated. So, if I see a bug or something and I want an AI to kind of start tackling it, I can just tag Devin and it will just kind of start working. So that's a really nice extra developer that's on the team that we can leverage. The next thing I'd say is the place that we don't have great automation is in things like the accounting side. So we use an outsourced firm to help with accounting, and there's a lot of manual work that I believe that they're doing, and there's a little bit of that trickles down to me and making sure that different receipts get sent to the right place. And so it's not a huge burden, but it's one that would be great if it just happened on its own, and I wouldn't have to worry about it so much. And then I think the last area where I think a lot of automation could be added is things like my schedule. So, not only do I run the company and really try to lead the product, and I'm the kind of the chief sales officer, but I also run a podcast, and I have some other travel that I do, and trying to manage all of that and schedule it's kind of challenging. We've introduced automation, but it's not really end to end, and automation sometimes hurts more than it helps. And so we haven't figured out a right way. It's nothing worse than when your AI email assistant schedules something the wrong day or like over another meeting, and that happens all the time. So we haven't figured out the right tools, but we're working through it.
Okay, thanks for sharing. I mean, there is always room for improvement. I was speaking to somebody last week, a couple, and they were telling me, they want to automate these. We are still looking for it. We don't think it exists. I said, what? What do you think? You've not searched enough. When you search enough, then I just mentioned a name. He said, no, I have not heard that before. No, I'm going to research it. So I guess you just keep looking. Definitely you'll find a perfect fit that we do exactly what you're looking for. I think my belief is that we could, even if it does not exist, you could create what you're looking for. It's a matter of time, testing it out, and at some point, definitely you'll get it right. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's some, I think we're at the age and adoption of AI where the tasks that are tractable and easier for LLMs to really help at, that we've really built products out that can tackle that. So things like customer support, things like transcribing, so like medical transcription, have been pretty successful in their rollout. But I think some of these other tasks are a little bit more complicated, and they haven't. The LLMs either aren't quite there, or we haven't figured out the right interfaces for them. So I think email is one of them. That there's a lot of tools. I've tried all of them, and they all have different deficiencies because if you think about the context that you need to answer emails properly or schedule someone, it's just not as simple as taking the email, taking an open calendar and scheduling it. There's other factors, there's preferences, there's time zones, there's more things that come into play that are not as simple as you would hope. And so I think over time we'll get better at them, but some tasks are just really hard to handle right now with the LLMs and with automation there.
Okay, I hear you. I wanted to ask you to describe, I think one of your tools is the Rosella AI. So how does that work? Maybe walk us through how that works.
Yeah. So Rosella is, let me back up a bit. So Rosella, the way we came up with this name is, a company is called Parakeet. Rosella is related to a parakeet, so it's basically a subspecies of parakeet. And so I think at the time, and it's still the case now, that many AI agents will try to have human-sounding names because there's something sort of enjoyable about knowing that you're talking to a human. So even like Claude.
Hi.
Yeah, right. My name's not as attractive, but there's AIs that are like Annie or Kevin or Jace, right? They have these names that are friendly. So that's what we came up with Rosella. So Rosella is a AI agent that's specifically for Parakeet. So it can do anything that you can do in the Parakeet UI, you can do through Rosella. So you can ask it to maybe create one of those documents like the ISO 50001 document, or you can ask it to create a new control for you. So if you have a policy or a risk and you want to create a control for it, you could ask Rosella and it will utilize all of the training and all of the special data that we have, to create that. Also, Rosella does agentic workflows, which means that it can complete different tasks with those tools I was talking about earlier. Yeah. For example, if you want to send every supplier in your supplier network a survey to maybe ask them a question about their availability on a certain product, or maybe to check on a compliance thing, you could ask Rosella to do that. It will draft that survey. It will make sure it has contact information for all of those different suppliers. It will send it. It will send the follow-ups. And so it's really meant to be an assistant to you as far as risk and compliance tasks that Parakeet can handle. And the goal long-term is that it'll be the primary interface for Parakeet. So you can imagine like a Rosella bot inside of Slack or inside of WhatsApp or Teams, and maybe all of your transactions just happen there. And like using the Parakeet UI may be something that you do from time to time. But we really think that these agents and like being able to have the agents work with other systems will be kind of the future. And so that's our kind of step into that space, and it's pretty popular in terms of like customer adoption, and I think that it will continue being so.
All right. Out of curiosity, how many companies are using Rosella today?
Yeah, so right now we've got like 10 that are like constantly using that tool alone, but the overall Parakeet platform, we have these of customers, and so that's kind of the range of customers. We're working on a couple of deals right now to get that number up to like 30, but that's the kind of range of customers we have, and we focus really on industrial enterprises and really trying to build for them.
Okay, so in terms of growth, just while you are on that topic, in terms of growth, where are you currently and where do you want to see your company grow to probably in the next 12 months? Yeah,
for sure. So I think as far as revenue, I won't discuss that one publicly, but as far as like where we want to be in the long run, we want to be a company that's publicly traded. We believe that we can be a company that is hundreds of millions of revenue or $1 billion revenue, and be on a stock exchange, like maybe own some stocks as well, and we want to get there relatively quickly, like in the next 5 years. And so what that means is that these early days where we only have 20 customers or 30 customers, and they provide a substantial amount of revenue, that it's a time for us to really hone in, make sure we understand the customer problem and pain points, and then be able to really scale. And so we think we're right there on the cusp of it, and we're trying to kind of like perfect our messaging and perfect our approach. But yeah, in the next year or two, what we expect is like, quadrupling our customer base, and then like maybe even like 10xing the customer base, because we understand like how to go to market, how to approach our customers. We understand the scope and size of the problem. And right now, it's really just refining all of that, refining the product, and just being ready to really attack this market opportunity.
All right. So if I just want to do a follow-up, I know you don't want to mention some numbers, which is okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of the number of customers that you want to, so currently you say you have like 20. So how many do you think you want to have like in 12 months? So maybe let's put it this way. Every month, definitely you will like, if we could get 1 customers onboarded every month, that would be fantastic. And at the end of the 12 months, it will take us to this number, which will translate to $1 million every year, something like that. Do you want to just give us the random number?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that we sell to industrial enterprises. So the average contract value is relatively high, right? So you're talking about 6 figures up into 7 figures. And so, the adding like a new customer every day, it's not going to be possible for us, because we are selling something that's expensive, that takes a lot of time and procurement to buy. And so it's never going to be something where we can add like 100 customers in a month, just because it's just so complicated to sell to 100 Nestle's or Cokes, right? That you can't possibly do that. But to answer your question, if we can go from 20 customers to say 50 customers in 1 year, or go from 20 customers to 60, so like 4 times roughly, that's the kind of growth that we're looking for. And so then that would take you from kind of like the single digit millions of revenue into like the tens of millions of revenue, right? And so that's kind of the next year or so where we're targeting. And then the year after that would be, can we stay on that same growth trajectory, right? So can we keep 4 timesing, right? Like keep 5 timesing every year. And then you go from, 20 customers to 60 to 150 to 300 to 500, right? That's kind of the process that we imagine. But to get there, we really have to have I think a couple things. So selling only an enterprise, like we won't be able to do. We have to move either across multiple markets or down market. But then also, we need to have a real pull. So that's part of why I'm doing a lot of podcasts and trying to get us out there, because
education.
We will be able to kind of get customers coming to us rather than us going to them, which is quite expensive and time consuming. But
international also, it's also another market you have to consider at one stage.
Yep. And international is another big unlock, especially in like the European Union. There's lots of regulations, and then also in certain parts of Asia as well, there's lots of regulations, and so we can be a good fit in those markets as well.
All right. If I may ask you, what's your price point? Is it something you can discuss in terms of an enterprise package for a company?
Yeah, for sure. So the price point really depends on the customer and like how much jobs that we will try to do for them as an agentic flow. But the kind of the smallest contracts are going to be like a 5-figure, so something between like $50,000 and $75,000, for example. And then like the largest contract will be $600,000 up to $1 million, depending on like the complexity of the deployment, and then also the types of things that we can do. So we have contracts all along that range, but it's really up to the customer, like what they require in this space, and then what we can help them accomplish in this space as well.
Okay, let me flip the coin. You are the automation guy. Mm-hmm. Have you considered using automation, AI, to scale your business?
I have. I think that it's a little bit more complicated than it seems, because you can scale something that you understand well, and you can define the parameters of it. But when you're still discovering that, and you're still learning how to sell and how to consistently capture new customers and how to compress the sales cycle so it's not 12 months long, it's hard to ask AI to help you with that. But there are areas where AI can help us. So I think one of the biggest ones has been account research. So we do a lot of detailed account research before we reach out to customers, make sure they have the kinds of problems that we can help with and that they would value. would value outreach from us. And so that's a part where AI is really good at, and you can define the parameters around that. As far as like outreach, so where we send emails or we do phone calls, we don't really use AI there. I think it's actually not legally allowed to do phone calls with AI, but it is, even on the email side, when you're emailing, Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 100 companies, sending an automated message maybe comes off not too great. Like, you only have one opportunity to really make a good first impression. And so we try to do things that don't scale in places that make sense, where the contract value could be really big. And then for maybe some of our customers that would be on the lower end of that contract value, we would maybe consider, hey, let's use AI here. And we are just starting to use a couple different go-to-market tools that are very focused on automation and AI. And those help us as well, because they can kind of tee things up while we're asleep, or do work that we can't do because we're in meetings or something. There's lots of opportunities there as well.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing. A magic one question is one question that everyone needs to answer before they finish. And I wanted to ask you, but maybe in a different way. And because you've spoken a lot about some of your priorities, some of the areas but if you have to, wave that magic wand, just one thing that you actually love to see. If there is a tool that never existed, it's just in your head, you've been thinking about it, I don't know what that may be in terms of what you want the tools to be able to do, but what would be that one thing or one tool that you will definitely go for one chance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the number one thing that would excite me is a tool that was kind of using ambient data. So it understood when there was maybe an incident at a factory, or it understood when there was a compliance violation, or when a company is opening up a new warehouse, kind of all of the signals that we use to reach out to companies. But if those could just come to me, that would be wonderful, right? So if it could just constantly be searching and trying to bring me signals from across the vast industrial sector, but then really kind of scoring those, bring me the things that would matter the most, would be awesome, because then I could focus a lot on things that are relevant to our potential customers, and I could focus my energy on places where it's most likely to be able to win and close. I mean, I think that's the thing that would change it for me. And if I could even ask it questions and go back and forth, that would be extremely meaningful.
Right. All right. Thanks for sharing. I guess if you really, really want it, you can research more, and it can happen one day. Yeah. Okay. All right. So as we run in the conclusion, I just wanted to find out, what do you want to say to people listening, or people that's going to watch this later, leaders of industry, captains of industry, people, that runs businesses, when it comes to automation, when it comes to using AI, adopting AI, what is your message to them today?
Yeah, I would say two things. So one is, if you haven't adopted it in any capacity, you should figure out a way that makes sense, that's safe for you in your business, to dip your toe, to even just adopt like an LLM chat model and then use it to just Q&A, answer questions. I'd say the second thing is that there's a level of proficiency and experience that's kind of required to get the most out of these tools, and that I believe strongly that the providers of the models are doing a decent job, but a lot of the products that are built on the backs of them are going to do a much more domain specific job that's going to be better. So if you can adopt a tool that helps you organize your email, or adopt a tool that helps you organize and manage compliance like ours, or if you can adopt a tool that maybe helps you do editing on a podcast, if you do a lot of podcasts, these tools will show their value very quickly, and then you can get a feel for how to use these tools, and then you can try to adopt them further in other domain specific ways. And I think that's how you get the most value out of it. So that's what I would definitely recommend.
Thank you so much. I think what I will add to that, and I keep saying this personally myself, is because this is the field that I understand. If you are an IT technician and you can do 10 jobs in a day, Now, with automation involved, you can then do 40 jobs. I tell any company it's a no-brainer because it's more revenue to the organization. It's not a situation whereby you then say, I'm going to fire the remaining people, but rather create more jobs so that you do more jobs with less effort because of AI, because of automation, and then the company get more revenue. I mean, for me, when you flip it that way, it makes sense to people because sometimes people kick back because they look at people are going to lose their job. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. That's the reason why I don't want to use it. But I think you capture everything, and I just needed to just add that. Thank you so much for sharing. If they want to look for you, a company wants to implement your solution, where will they find you?
Yeah, so if you're interested in our company Parakeet, we're at parakeetrisk.com, and you can set up a demo there. You could look at our case studies and our solutions, and that's a good place to go there. For me personally, I use LinkedIn a lot. I'm Jowanza Joseph, and I'm the only Jowanza Joseph there. So I always welcome new connections, and yeah, happy to interface with you there. I'm also a big user of Twitter, so I'm Jowanza on Twitter, and you can find me there as well. So I'm always happy to connect, and my network is your network. So if you need an intro, please reach out.
All right. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for coming today. I think your insight is going to be very valuable to everyone that's watched this later. And I think there's a lot of value in everything that you've told us today. I want to say thank you. Wish you all the best in your company as you grow. And I believe, man, when you join the stock exchange one day, you will give us an invite to come and celebrate with you. We're going to be there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. And yeah, let me know if you need anything from me.
You didn't quit your day job to become a full-time admin assistant. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you didn't start your business to spend 60 hours a week on paperwork, chasing leads, and managing endless admin tasks. You started it to build something meaningful and serve your clients. But right now, you're trapped in the day-to-day grind instead of growing your business. What if I told you our clients are reclaiming 15, 20 hours per week, increasing their revenue by 30 to 50% within 6, 12 months, and finally getting their lives back? We don't just automate random tasks. We build custom AI systems that eliminate the bottlenecks choking your growth, from leads generation to lead, nurturing and management to project management to client follow-ups. Stop paying for an expensive, frustrating manual system. It's time to upgrade to strategic automation. Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free business transformation strategy call today. Discover exactly how much time and money you're losing to manual processes and how to get both back. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Intelligence Forge, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode packed with game-changing insights. Your future automated business is waiting.